So I love roguelikes, especially ones of the action variety. I remember my first being Hades, and I was so enamored with the game loop that I really haven't played anything else ever since. As evident by the amount of roguelikes that make it to Steam, it is quite obvious that I am not the only one who likes them. Also, from a game dev standpoint, the logic required for roguelikes are standardized and can be stretched to fit whatever idea you can think of, making it a lot easier for indie devs and smaller studios to make them. I am developing a game myself, and if you have been following along, you can probably already guess it's a roguelike. Shocker. But honestly, I won't be satisfied just making another roguelike to add to the enormous pile on Steam. On the flip side, I'm a fan of these games and I really wanted to create an action roguelike with its own unique combat system and mechanics that can stand the test of time and be enjoyable for any other lovers of the genre. I have been working towards this goal for about 6 months now, and I would like to share my progress with anyone who would like to see it. So I would appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe if this kind of content is your jam. Now, enough with the self-promotion, let's get this thing started. Here are all the systems that currently make up the foundation of my game. First, let's discuss the movement system. This is one of the most important parts of any game because this is how players interact with the world. I was very inspired by the movement and platforming systems present in the Rogue Prince of Persia, and I wanted to recreate that to some degree in my game. Currently, players can move, jump, dash, and wall run. Players can also chain wall jumps if there is another wall in close proximity. This was inspired by the Ninja Gaiden games. Players can also chain dashes and jumps, creating simple yet smooth movement mechanics in-game. There is even some kind of movement tech in my implementation that allows players to chain a jump from a corner to quickly bounce out of it. This was not an intended feature, but I love it so much that I'm going to try and keep it in the system. I have a few more movement and platforming features I would like to implement, but I think this is a good point to leave it at while I work on other things. This is the meat and potatoes of an action roguelike. If the combat system is not fun to engage with, you can as well kiss the viability of the game goodbye, as action games usually live and die by their combat systems. I was a little scared that I would choke this, but I decided to give it a go, and I'm glad to say I was able to successfully design and implement a system that I think is fun and can be greatly improved on. There are multiple elements at play here, and I think it would be a good idea to talk about each one of these separately. At its simplest form, the baseline for any combat system is various attacks and various defenses to set attacks. These are the foundations to any system, and getting these right will ensure the longevity of the project. Players have access to an attack combo. This can be customized to encompass as many attacks as possible. Players also have access to a charged attack. This takes some time to execute but deals more damage. Successful attacks drain the enemy's health and posture. Reducing the health to 0 kills the enemy and reducing their posture stuns them, providing the players with a few seconds to dish out an attack uninterrupted. For defense, players have access to a parry. This allows players to negate any attack from enemies, while also creating some space between them. A successful parry also deals posture damage to the enemy. If all the player could do was use a 3-hit combo on enemies, that would get bored very quickly. Adding equipable skills provides the player with a variety of options to use in combat. The design and implementation of these skills is only limited by one's imagination. giving any game a chance to create its own unique thing and stand out from the crowd. However, these can also very easily unbalance your game, so you need to create some kind of drawback to using these skills. These can be cooldowns or some cost associated with using said skill. I decided to forego the cooldown option and lean more into the cost option. In my game, combat skills have a skill charge cost. But how does one get skill charges? Skill charges can be obtained by successfully executing a parry. I went for this design choice to create a sort of dance in the combat system. In order to execute a skill, players will need to earn it by engaging with the combat system. However, when I initially designed it, I found that forcing the players to execute a parry before they can launch a skill reduced the fun factor of the game. So I decided to improve on this design a bit. Players can use a skill with an insufficient skill charge at the cost of some health. The cost associated with each skill varies. If the player has insufficient health, they are unable to cast the skill. Players also have access to utility skills. These do not have any combat capabilities but provide the player with unique abilities that can change the way they approach combat. For example, players do not usually have the ability to block attacks, but with the block utility skill equipped, the option to block becomes available to the player. Similarly, players can equip the deflect boost skill. This gives players a temporary boost in speed on a successful parry, allowing the player to move quicker when engaging in combat. Unlike the combat skills, these skills are passive and do not have any cost associated with them, but allow the player to tailor the combat to their own style. To add some depth to the system, I added damage types to all attacks. Every possible attack that can be made in-game is just an amalgamation of data and a resource that allows the system to interpret this data however it sees fit. This allows every attack to have a damage type associated with it, adding further depth to the system. There are currently 10 damage types in-game, and each type will have 5 or 6 skills associated with it. However, just adding depth with no resource or effect on the combat will be a wasted effort. So how exactly does the damage type affect the combat in-game? My game loop is centered around hunting monsters, so I added a weakness trait to the enemy monsters in-game. This means every monster has a damage type they are weak to. When an enemy is struck with an attack they are weak to, the posture damage of that attack is multiplied by a certain amount. This is indicated by a flashing posture bar during an attack. Some damage types also inflict certain status effects. Builds are one of my favorite aspects of roguelikes. Having a selection of random buffs and items to put together to make viable builds for combat and successfully finding a groove is one of the best feelings in the genre in my opinion. However, due to the random nature of items and buffs, you can end up with runs that are just not viable because your items do not go well together. This is one of my pet peeves in roguelikes, and I wanted to try and fix that to some degree. So how did I do it? I implemented something I'm calling the attunement system. Players have a chance to find a skill gem. Interacting with a skill gem provides the player with a few options to increase their attunement with a certain damage type. Increasing your attunement with said damage type increases your level and multiplies damage by a value based on the attunement level. When you reach a certain point, the attunement levels up, giving you the opportunity to select a randomly generated combat skill associated with your attuned damage type. This system gives the player the ability to steer the randomness in a certain direction without removing the benefits of randomness, allowing players to work towards certain skills and builds. This, combined with utility skills and a future feature that would allow players to equip different weapons, creates a build system that allows for a variety of combinations and encourages player expression. A good combat system is more than just attacking and defending. There needs to be ample feedback from the system to stimulate the brain and increase immersion in the system. As you have probably already noticed, enemies also have various visual effects that provide information to the player, like damage numbers, health, and posture bars. These also play a role in providing good feedback to the player, making an overall solid experience when engaging in combat. I know this is a long video, but this is a culmination of 6 months of work. There's still a long road ahead, but I am proud of the point I've reached so far. When I started this project, it looked nothing like this, but what I have right now is due to my consistency with development. I have been able to build a great foundation for the game, providing me with the ability to scale this project easily and also bring me one step closer to my vision. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you, and I would like to offer you a chance to help shape the development of this game. Video games are an iterative process, and I cannot develop it without your help. The project is currently in a playable state, and I would like to get as many hands on it as possible, so I could further refine my systems. Please feel free to join my Discord with the link in the description to gain access to the most current builds of the game and also provide opinions on the development. If you would like to just try the game, there is a playable prototype on my itch page, and you can also find a link to this in the description. Once again, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Until next time, peace.